Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone look at the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Louis made the motion to approve and Patrick seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? It passed. Minutes, October 20th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Louis made the motion to approve.
Second.
Harley seconded. Any discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passed. Petitions, docket PC 11-17-2201. Consider the petition of Jeremiah and Kelsey Littman, conditional use permit. Lou, you got this. You're up.
Okay, just have a brief, hopefully brief presentation and we'll get into the, this project is located in Rolling Stone Township, directly adjacent to Minnesota City. Section 2 of Rolling Stone Township, access from Dakota Street, which is actually a city street in Minnesota City. If you look at the map, you can see floodplain river out to the north and east. It's all National Wildlife Refuge, and then kind of wedged between Highway 61 and Minnesota City there. The site is within the shoreland district, which is why we're here with planning commission tonight. It's zoned agricultural, so any new dwellings that are in the ag districts, as well as the shoreline overlay district, require seed. You can see Garvin Brook there running down the northeast side of the property. Dakota Street in Minnesota City and Minnesota Street, that kind of loop there. The driveway coming in is actually shared by another property that's just as you can tell, it looks like an old quarry filled in, a sand pit, and it is. It was owned by Matthew Construction prior to this, and I think they've been selling some of their properties. This is one of them, and the petitioners recently bought it. And they're looking to build a home. They also had the septic system identified there. They had GQ, Chatfield, come down and do some soil borings. They didn't put together a design for the septic system, but the designer was confident they'd be able to get in a system for them there. So, the floodplain is also nearby. As you can see, these are two different maps. The current 1984 map is on the right. And then the new data from the DNR is on the left. That's data that is available to us, but hasn't been adopted at some point. So they'll be ready for adoption. It'll come before you for adoption in hopefully not too distant future. But we'll put it up there just so you can see the difference. There is a little bit of difference there. It's a little bit more floodplain in that area than what the 1984 map would suggest. But it's still, there's still room there for dwelling outside of the floodplain. And the elevations for regulatory flood protection elevation, the new home would be above that as well. Just wanted to point that out. The additional considerations, the parcel is around 25 acres, located in the ARC and shoreline districts. The lake is 6.5 acres in size. There is sand fill and dredge spoils on the site. And we received Army Corps of Engineer dredge spoils a number of years ago. And so when you see some of the photos here, you'll see how that's been smoothed and graded and covers part of the site. As you imagine, most of the site has been disturbed at one time or another from quarry activity. There are map wetlands on the sites, but that'll have to be looked at. But guessing with the Corps putting sand there, they would have been working with the DNR at the same time to address those wetland concerns. So, and just walking the site, I didn't see a whole lot of evidence of where they're mapped. So I think some of those wetlands were actually in the pit that's been quarried. This is the existing flood data, or the new flood data with the commissioner's site plan overlaid on it. So you can see how that kind of lays out on the site in relation to that new data. The blue lines are the direction of slope or runoff on the site, if there was to be any.
Only the pink area is floodplain.
The pink area is floodway. The blue or purple area there would be flood fringe, I believe. So, yeah, I think that, you can see there, it actually does say on the map floodway and flood fringe. So, floodway is the area that's not buildable. There's a much more restrictive ordinances and regulations for that area, because you're going to get directional flow when a flood occurs. It's going to be sheeting and moving through there. Much more powerful, potentially, currents. The flood fringe are usually areas that are more impoundments, and those are areas that you can build in as long as you're meeting the standards of the flood fringe. So you're meeting the regulatory flood protection at elevation. You can like put fill in there to raise the building site up.
So their house isn't on either one of those, but it's because it's within a setback of it?
Is why we're hearing it.
Yeah, I'm asking you, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only reason I show this is just because it's there and it's nearby. That doesn't have any bearing on why we're here. Wasn't triggering a conditional use permit. The shoreland district is 300 feet from the stream, and you can see that's that's the buffer right there, and that's where the building site is within. So that triggers the conditional use permit. The setback that comes along with that shoreland district is 100 feet. And they're meeting that by, it's like 250 foot setback from the stream. So they're well outside of the 100-foot setback.
How much fill is in that lake they put in there? Is it enough that it will not flood?
Well, the lake was created by removing material.
Yep.
And then it just, water just coming into it.
It's out of the groundwater.
Groundwater, really, it's all connected to the Mississippi River.
But I mean, how much of the sand did the Corps put in?
For dredge, I don't know. I don't know how much they've actually put in there.
I'm getting about is it high enough to where it won't flood? It won't be a wetland.
High enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, this data here actually, this new data took into account those elevations. So that I believe that fill was there prior to these prior to this modeling being done. So if it's outside of that flood area, is what they're saying is that it's not within the flood zone and that it's got a very low flood risk. no flood insurance would be required. Not to say that things can't flood,
Yeah,
you know.
I was just wondering, did the Corps bring it up to the standard it was before they started taking out the materials that was in there, is what I was getting at.
Yeah, and I don't know the history
Or
as far
close.
as what those pre-existing grades were, because it's been, you know, maybe some of the people that were in that neighborhood, you know, might be able to say about it, I'm not sure. What those pre-existing grades were. I will say that the elevation is at the building site, will be above that regulatory flood protection elevation. So. This is our site plan, very similar to the other one, this gives you an idea of the surroundings. We have some photos, this is from the points on Dakota Street. This gravel driveway is part of the shared driveway that currently goes to the neighbor's property. And would be shared by the applicants.
Who actually owns it?
It looks like it actually follows the property of the applicants here. But it kind of straddles the property line. I can't remember, you can ask the applicants, but, if there's not, there should be an easement probably associated with that. I can't remember if there was. This is a picture of the site. You can see sand fill. There's an embankment on the left side there towards the lake. And a lot of sand that's graded down through that. Another picture backed up a little bit, closer to the entrance to the property. The petitioners went to Rolling Stone Township on November 14th, and the township indicated that they supported the petition. There are 5 conditions attached to the application if you choose to approve it or recommend approval. For your consideration, all I have for you in my presentation, unless there's a question.
Lynn?
Yes. I don't know if I'm remembering the number right, but you said it had to be a certain elevation that the proposed dwelling, 665 feet. Did I see that on the map?
That sounds right.
So where are we at now with the current? How much higher do they have to go to meet 665? They're going to be like built on top of a hill?
No, it's very close to that. I think they're actually above.
Oh.
Depends on what part of the property, because on the part closer to the driveway access entrance,
Mhm.
that's higher, and then it slowly slopes down to the building site, which you can kind of see there. So where I'm standing is a little bit higher, and then it's a slow grade down to water level, actually, along that whole kind of open area. And if you look here, where the building site is, it's not on top of the, and also it's set down in there a little bit further. But it says proposed house finished floor would be 664.9. The base flood there looks like it is 663 at that red line. So they'd need to be a foot and a half above that base flood elevation.
Any other questions? Anybody?
It does, doesn't it? It's hard to, I think it should say probably in the snap. You know, application.
663.41.
53?
663.41.
This was ruled that this was ag land. Did you see any evidence of?
Agricultural activity, no.
Okay, it appeared that way in your pictures. Just want to confirm it.
I don't know that there's ever been any, anything down there along those lines, but yeah, a lot of those areas are zoned agricultural resource conservation.
Did look like a park.
Yeah, I mean, it's sandy, graded sand, sandy basin there with the lake. You can see the trees off to the side, the embankment from the sand is, it's probably up 15 feet or so from the water, at the lake.
Any other questions for Lou? All righty, thank you. Petitioner, would you like to come up and speak, please?
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for.
Name, address, please.
Okay, Jeremiah Littman. I live here in Winona off of 61 Warrior Drive. So, appreciate everybody here in South tonight. We recently acquired the property from Matthew, obviously, as was discussed, and have been evaluating the build site. We chose it really specifically to raise, with my wife, our 2 children, and be our primary residence once we build. So the site was chosen because it enters along a private drive, which I heard the question before. That is actually on our property. 2 neighbors have an easement to that driveway, but it is associated with this deed. So our intention was to build slightly down lower and be harmonious in the sense of not getting too close to the lake and also respecting the Garvin Brook area. You'll notice the whole thing is surrounded by trees. We wanted the most privacy we could and to limit any impact on the neighborhood as we could. So I'm available for questions if anybody has any. Yes, sir.
I think all of us have received correspondence about the proposed place. Have you heard any issues about that location from neighbors or residents in that area?
As I've made my way around mowing the property or whatever, I've met a number of neighbors. In fact, one of them is here tonight. I think he'll probably end up talking. The reality is I know that from the realtor and from interactions that Matthew did not police that area. And from that aspect, a lot of the subdivision used it. Unfortunately, it's private property, right? And I have some liability concerns with the pond being there. I did send a letter to everybody noting that we had purchased the property. It's obviously very professional and cordial, and that we have people stay off it so that they didn't have issues. I'm sure there are people that are upset that we acquired this, and I unfortunately can't.
Yeah, it seemed like the letters that we received here, it's kind of disturbing the natural habitat out there, et cetera, the quiet, and it's close to this and close to that and that type of thing. But you have not heard has anybody contacted you?
Not directly, no.
Okay.
Not about that concern. And as Louis kind of mentioned, it slopes down.
Mhm.
The private driveway is probably, 150 feet long. And so, again, we go back to where we chose the build site. Even on the pond facing side, you can see the heavy tree line bordering the whole property. The intent was, I'll be honest, I wanted something private. And I don't want to be a nuisance to neighbors. I don't want them to see me, and I chose that so that we could obviously minimize the impact. From the harmonious of the neighborhood, obviously it's a full neighborhood around there. And I would think this would be a better offering than sand pit, which Matthew was running for many years.
Um, how much, how many trees and vegetation do you plan to remove to build?
None. The build site, as you can see, is very open. There is some small brush and I would call it long grass in the build area, but we have no intention of taking down any of the trees around the property.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Jordan made the motion to open the public hearing and Kelly seconded. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye. Opposed? It passed. Public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Do you have some people online? Anybody online would like to speak? Nothing, not everyone at once? Okay. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. I can't unmute. Someone's saying they can't unmute. Angie. She must be trying to say something. Can't unmute. Okay, well, anyone here want to get up and speak?
It actually looks like her sound volume is down, not the mute. They put it across to the microphone and she's got a speaker with an X. So Angie, if you can hear me, try to raise the volume. Yeah, she could call in. Give her a phone number. She can hear us.
Anyone here in the audience want to get up and speak? Well, come on up here while we're waiting for her. Name and address, please.
Dave McCorkadale, 120 Bridge Street, Minnesota.
Okay,
I did grow up out there. It is wide open. So, very beautiful area. My wife and I purchased land that attaches to this land. I don't see an issue. I don't see him disturbing nature or anything. We're planning on building on the opposite side of the street, Minnesota Street. Same situation. But we haven't seen the city sewer. Didn't start building yet, but as far as they're agreeing to build their home and that they're not going to disturb anything. Mr. Littman served his time in the military for our freedom. He should have what he wants and he's paying for it. Build the street. That's all I look at.
thank you. There, are we making any progress?
And calling it, I think she will hear it.
Oh,
I was thinking,
okay. Well, how's our legal person? We call that trying? I mean, if she'd like to speak in front of this thing and we're not letting her do it, isn't that an issue or not really?
It would be an issue in the sense that she has the right to appear. However, I think it's about if we make reasonable efforts to accommodate.
Okay, are we making reasonable efforts to accommodate?
I would call this reasonable efforts. I think certainly providing her the phone number and technology be reasonable in this circumstance. However, to err on the side of caution, we could try to attempt to wait to see if she could connect.
Okay. Lou, you know how to dance? Okay. I'm gonna have Lou dance then. Anyone else in the audience would like to get up and speak? Nobody? So
Yeah.
are we having any luck?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. This is Angie Bonestangle, 132 Dakota Street, Minnesota City.
Go ahead and say what you want to say.
That I completely object to anybody building down there. I'm sure you've got many letters from the community. I think putting a house where there isn't a house is a big change. And it's along, right down by the wildlife preserve. It was a community area before it was purchased. That is all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for the 8th and final time, if anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Jordan made the motion to close the public hearing and Louis seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. And it passed. The public hearing is now closed. Discussion time. Oh, someone forgot to pay the light bill again. Yeah, the wind quit blowing or the sun went down, one of the
Sun
two.
went down, yeah. Lithium batteries burnt off.
Okay, what do you guys think? Discussion? I mean, I read all these letters that came in and listening. Well, on the phone said it was public property, but it was private property. I guess I don't understand why the city didn't buy it for a park. Any one of the people that object to the house being there could have bought the land and built their own house or kept it as a park. That's the way I look at it, is the fact that he stuck his neck out and bought it. That's just my opinion, Louis.
I'd make a motion to approve it with the conditions that have been brought forth.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve it with the conditions and the findings of fact. Any discussion?
I guess I could, I sympathize with the folks that had been using it before. Unfortunately, there's just really not a lot the planning commission can do about this. The owner of the land wishes to build a house, and there really isn't any reason for us to prevent them from doing that. So.
Any other
I
discussion?
would just add that our jurisdiction really lies in the appropriateness of what the shoreline issue is, not whether or not they can build a house there. I mean, a lot of people might not like a lot of things, or they might consider a lot of ag land to look like a park too, but the farmer's gonna use it for what he purchased it for. We're not, the letters don't really speak to the shoreland issue. And really, it looks like one letter.
Chain letter, reform letter. Anybody else? Patrick?
I think, with the letters, now they will have a new residence there and that type of thing. And before, they had this bucolic, made in heaven environment. And I can understand that, but we have an owner of the property. They want to build. So to me, it's move forward.
Okay. Are you raising your hand?
Yeah,
Holding
I-
his arm up.
I don't agree with most of this letter, but I don't think it's been nature since it was quarried. And I think the character of that area was changed a long time ago. So now it's a neighborhood, and I think a house is more appropriate than a quarry. Yeah.
All right, there's a motion, a second to approve. Any other discussion? If none, all in favor of approving it, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. Your next meeting, or it will be taken before the Winona County Board on Tuesday, December 13th at 7 PM. It's a night meeting, that one is. So good luck with that. All righty. Next petition, docket PC 11/17/2202. A petition for Jody and Ryan McQuinn, property owners, to build a dwelling. Olivia, you're up, please. Didn't get the lights to work yet?
Try.
Okay, that's good enough.
We have a line there.
We're saving electricity. There we go.
So similar to the petition, this is also a conditional use permit request because it is a new dwelling in the land. And it's in the base zoning. So a little bit of a project overview, the property owners are currently one of the petitioner's parents. They're looking to build new residence to be able to help out with caretaking duties around where their family currently resides, so to be closer to them. The new dwelling will be built as a slab-on grade home. So if you look at the map, you can see the city of Dakota. Jan, get that, you know. See the city of Dakota to the right of that image, and then they have Dakota Valley Drive on Spees Road, which intersects their parcel. It's in New Hartford Township in section 11. So some of the site considerations, you can see the building site outlined in that pink red tone. They are outside of the floodplain, which is the dark blue, but they are in shoreland, which is the reason for the conditional use permit request. And it is in high probability as well, so pending your recommendation to county board and approval, we would contract with EWCrops to get a survey done on site. So some of the considerations, it is 3.43 acres, but it's a parcel of record, so it doesn't fall within the district. So I apologize for the quality, but we didn't get the core version. So you can see their building site on the lighter portion of that parcel, and then the driveway. The driveway location was actually amended, and you'll see that in the updated site plan to the outside of that shoreline impact zone, and then the septic would be to the north of the building site. And they did have someone on site, and I believe we received the septic application already for this property. So this was after working with the petitioners to change the driveway location. You can see it would meet that, it meets the 100-foot buffer from the shore impact zone. So the new driveway would kind of curve around up to the building site. This is just showing the same thing. The shoreline zone is the hatched area that's covered in the later parcel. When we went out on site, there was fill at the site already, so that's taken into consideration with one of the conditions requiring the erosion control measures. This is looking at the building site to the northeast. Spees Road comes off of Dakota Valley up there in the towards the back of the picture. This is looking the opposite direction towards the southwest. And you can see the ag field, off as well. Dakota Valley wraps around up around the parcel. And so this is down off of the building site. You can see that the building site is raised above where Spees Road is, and then the tributary to Dakota Creek stream, which is the reason for the shoreland, is to the right of Spees Road. Looking at it from this picture. New Hartford Township did receive the request on 10/13, and they indicated no comments for the proposal. So the recommendation would be that staff have drafted findings that support granting the petition as a CUP. The commission should consider all materials and testimony before making findings that support your decision. And should you decide to approve the petition, staff have drafted 5 conditions. That are in the packet. If you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Olivia? Lynn, you must have one to ask her, don't you? No?
By the pictures, it looked like there was already a house down in that area.
There is, yep, there are a couple of them.
People.
Yep, so this is, if you're looking at the smaller aerial, there's a bridge on the southern portion of their property boundary. Yeah, there's another residence on the Speed Road. So you're seeing, go back on the left of that big picture. And then their parents' home is on the right side of the earth, just like the east.
Was that your cultural land at one time?
Was
Lately?
within the last 10 years, yes. There is still farm field agricultural land on the parcel to the west. Yep.
When was it last? Good, yeah.
It's within 6 years. I'd have to get the date from the.
Anybody else have any questions for her?
I'm just curious how it kind of relates to the previous petition with the flood zone. We don't have a flood fringe, we just have a flood way. Is that what the blue is?
The blue is floodplain altogether. Within that blue, there would be the breakout of
Fringe and,
fringe.
and then also the way.
Yep.
So they meet the setback requirements.
I can
Just trying to figure it out in my own head.
explain a little bit. There's certain areas of the new mapping that are general zone A. And so they're not split out between floodway and flood fringe. So certain areas of the county have that designation. They did extra modeling to give us that floodway and flood fringe. Some of the tributaries don't have it.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any other questions for her?
Just to confirm, you said that within the past 10 years, it was farmland, but it is not prime soil.
Correct.
So, okay.
Picturing the soil, is that more of a gravel-based soil?
This was the still that they brought in. This isn't the original.
Aerial view, it looks kind of dry.
Right, and that aerial is again fill that they brought in.
Oh.
Right.
So it went quite a bit lower.
Lower elevation. It's sloped down more. Yeah, that fill.
Rocks in there,
That
maybe
building.
all over the farm.
They did.
It wasn't as flat as it is now.
Correct. I mean, that's still a relatively flat area, but it definitely slopes down from Dakota Valley more so than it does now.
All right, anybody else? Okay, thank you. Okay, petitioner, would you like to come up and name and address, please?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ryan McQuinn. This is my wife Jody. We live on Cedar Drive in La Crescent, Minnesota. And
Apartment now.
And we're looking to build on this property. And we're trying to get out in the country next door, folks. and-
Well, I grew up on that land, so, and my uncle actually owned a parcel close to that. So there was a house there prior to where we're building. It's a little off-site, but it's close to that area. And I just grew up there. So, and my parents are getting older and it's just beautiful. I'm hoping to make my dreams come true. That's all. Yeah. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for him?
It's nerve-wracking.
No questions?
No questions from anybody? Okay, thank you. Alrighty. Public hearing.
Motion to open. Second.
Louis made the motion to open the public hearing and Jordan seconded it. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Okay, the public hearing is now open. Anyone who wishes to speak for or against a petition, step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. The internet's a little cooler on this one. Just asking, I can't see all that stuff, so I know you're on top of it. If anyone wishes to speak for or against this petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Okay, for the third and final time. Anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, step forward, state your name and address and what you would like to say. Nothing online yet. Just the two, right? Okay,
Motion to close the public hearing.
there's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Jordan made the motion, Arlie seconded it. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The public hearing is now closed. What are your wishes, folks?
I move to approve the proposal with staff's finding of facts and conditions as stated.
Okay, Lynn made the motion to approve and Jordan seconded it. Any discussion? Any discussion? Patrick?
Good for them that they're keeping it in the family.
And looking out for each other.
Adding housing to the county.
Adding housing to the county.
Property tax, broadening it rather than taxing existing people more. Good, win, win, win. Win for them. Win for the taxpayer. And they're not out in the middle of a field. This is the corner of a,
Mhm.
Yep.
Nice. Kelly, nothing? Okay. Anybody have anything else to say? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. And the motion passes. Your next hurdle is the county board meeting, Tuesday, December 13th at 7 PM. I believe it's in the same room, right? Okay, good luck. Okay. Public hearing, zoning ordinance amendments, timber harvesting and recreational cabin. Lou, you're up.
Okay, been a little while, since I think this has been back before you guys, maybe August. When Megan was still here, I think she was kind of leading the charge on the timber harvesting piece. it's really pretty minor changes. We're looking at changing things like, from the planning department to planning and environmental services, for those references. Clarifying, ordinance language by adding definition and location of performance standards and ordinance. Change language from liable to responsible, as well as recommended by the attorney's office. And then, removing the requirement to follow the guidelines to follow more of a volunteer based or follow it, and we recommend that they follow those ordinances. So in your packet, I think you have a clean copy and a strike through copy of what's being proposed. If you'd like, I don't know if you have any questions. Really, this we discussed this. I think it was preliminarily kind of approved by the planning commission. What we're doing today is holding a public hearing and making our recommendation to the county board. So if you like, I can go through the recreational cabin standards as well. And then if there are questions we can discuss or just go right into the hearing.
What are your wishes?
Do them both at once, so go through the cab, that's my preference.
Get it done.
Yeah, you to do that. So, the cabin section, there was some confusion. This, I think it was before you in September. But there was a term that was defined as seasonal dwelling, and I believe came through with the septic ordinance. Ended up in the ordinance, and there was confusion internally because we also have a recreational cabin standard in chapter 9. And so the idea was to get rid of seasonal dwelling and just use recreational cabin standard throughout the ordinance. I think it showed up just in that one other place. So we'd be changing the SSTS standards to include a recreational cabin instead of seasonal dwelling. And then in chapter 9, where we're talking about the recreational cabin standards, per our conversation with you all, we're looking at changing the maximum height requirement to be considered a recreational cabin from 15 feet to 15 feet. So we're looking at that a little bit. And then we're defining, clarifying a little bit what the 900 square feet pertains to. And so we say specifically that screened-in porches, unheated spaces or garages are not to be included into the 900 square feet. Not a huge change. We weren't really, that wasn't the way we were implementing it before, but this would clarify the language. And then Stephanie did not like the way that we had number 4 in that section to state that that the cabin should not be occupied for more than 4 continuous months. We preferred it to be 180 days in any calendar year. So it's again, the intent is the same, the language is a little bit different, but it shouldn't change much as far as it as a practical implementation for property owners. And that's it of the recreational cabin section. That cleans that section up. So really a couple of sections with pretty minor changes for you all to consider tonight. So tonight we're holding a public hearing, discussing and recommending planning recommendation of the planning board. Any questions for me or?
When they harvest timber, it used to be that you had to report to the DNR how many board feet was harvested. Is that still in effect? And does Winona County happen to get a copy of that, of anything coming out of Winona County to know how much board feed has been harvested within the county?
We don't, no, we don't receive that. We don't report it to the DNR if they're, if, you know, timber harvesters are reporting that. It's between the DNR and the harvesters.
How long ago was that, Louis?
And since they started sawing, when this town was founded in the 1850s.
And I've sold timber more than once and I didn't ever.
There is a board footage requirement supposed to be recorded to the state unless it's been repealed or whatever.
That's on
So-
private land or?
That's hit, it was supposed to be kept for how much board feet was harvested, so they know how much lumber was going on, how much was going off the land. And that was in the days even before income tax, so it was a way to keep track of how industry was going at the time. I don't believe that law's ever been repealed to my knowledge.
Sure, there was a lot more cutting going on back then.
Yes.
I'm with Steve Jacob. I've harvested several times. Never recall it being recorded. So if it is on the books, it's not actively pursued.
Okay,
And I would say that's throughout the state.
but anyway, there was an old book, old law that I remember from that you're supposed to report the harvested off. If you run your own sawmill, you're supposed to report that too.
You know,
The
it
board
might be getting reported through the sawmills, not from property owners.
Whoever's buying the lumber.
It doesn't make any more sense to me that I would report to a government agency what I harvested from my woods any more than what I harvested from my field.
It just goes back to some old archaic laws. You being an elected representative, you can check that out.
Okay.
And if you want it, you can have it repealed. Probably be all right. It's an archaic law.
Well, at some point, we need to know how many trees we're planting and how many trees we're cutting. Because the state could end up with no trees if it was just willy-nilly, everybody do whatever they want. It may not be enforceable, it may not be monitored or publicly made apparent to obvious landowners around these parts, but I would guess that's a statistic I want to track.
Forest regenerate themselves.
Well, whether that's required or not, I mean,
It's way off the subject here.
yeah, I mean, the language we have says that you have to conform to the woodland conservation provisions, et cetera. So it's not relevant to this particular language right here.
The DNR gets involved.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions before we open the public hearing?
I have one. I don't know. Would a house on stilts be an issue, or are those not allowed anymore as far as the height restriction goes? Someone wanted to build a cabin by the river or something.
Yeah, the tree house kind of idea, how that would. I don't know, we haven't had that question, haven't had to work through that one yet.
Well, the structure's only 18 feet. Remember, that's how high you.
We have to start.
Too high, tree house.
5 feet in the air.
Any other discussion before we open the public hearing? All right. Who wants to make the motion?
We'll second that.
Mike made the motion to open the public hearing. Jordan seconded it. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The public hearing is now open. Anyone wishes to speak for or against this petition, please step forward, state your name, address, and what you'd like to say. Not everyone at once, but yeah, okay.
Bill Throne, Dakota. I was here for the last group, and this is just for me a sidelight, but I logged the walnut trees off the property 2 years ago. I got even permit from the property to do things, but in the loggers I talked to, they said almost no one has a permit from the property. And I didn't even know I needed one until I was just cruising through the requirements. far as reporting, what's taken off, nobody reports that. I also have a small sawmill. I've never seen anything about reporting what I saw or what I do with it. So as far as what the rules are here versus what happens in real life, there's a big difference in the. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just mentioned it because I remember it being on the books, that's all.
I believe there's three counties in the whole state of Minnesota that records to the state with the lumber.
He brought that up. He had to fill that crap out when he.
Winona's one of them.
But if the commission's interested, I've been looking it up. So far, I've only seen DNR regulations relating to cutting lumber on DNR owned land. I have not seen anything currently about just any forest land or privately owned timber. But I can continue to search. We're interested.
Well,
That's what's it, right?
anyone else? Okay. Anyone else wishes to speak for or against the petition? Please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Anyone online for this? Yeah, is it an amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the amendment, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Jordan made the motion to close the public hearing and Arlie seconded it. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passed. Public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the amendments as presented and accept the findings of fact as prepared by staff and recommend the amendments be approved by the county board.
Second.
Jordan seconded it. All right, discussion.
I think we're ready. Our position, my position was, is listen to the public about this issue. Limited testimony. I felt that I've covered my points before and made it clear and see them reflected. So I have no further discussion.
Okay, anybody else? No further discussion? Kelly made the motion to pass it as presented. All in favor of passing this?
Seconded.
Jordan seconded.
Okay, good.
All in favor of passing this, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion passes. The amendment passes, so they can send it to the county board. They can take the timber part and throw it away. All right. Updates, Board of Adjustment.
Today we voted on a prime soils variance that you guys actually voted on last month for Mitchell and Courtney Campbell, and we approved that one. And we had another septic system in Dakota that we approved as well.
Okay.
County board approved the Smith D&D dairy application. We also approved the Campbell CUP on less than 40 acres. And on a personal note, I will not be here next month. So this will be my planning commission meeting.
So you got the cake?
Very bittersweet moving on to this next office. I've really enjoyed and appreciated working with the county and especially this particular planning commission. I feel like both planning staff, planning department and the planning commission, all three just have the best interests of the citizens in mind. It feels like we do really good work here. I'm gonna miss this.
And Steve, I have to say it's been a joy working with you over the years. Brought a lot of insight to planning commission as well as the commissioners. We thank you. I'm sure everyone gets us to do that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you can still bring cookies next time.
I'll send them with Marcia.
Come back anytime. They're public.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to get you your plaque, I would imagine, at some point. So I think we do get a little plaque for something, some sort of recognition for people coming off the board that Kay likes to do. So we'll have to do that
Oh,
in a
wonderful.
future meeting. So we'll mail it to you or something.
Bring it to the Capitol.
Yeah, there you go.
Just go ahead.
Is there any other discussion or business that needs to be brought forth at this meeting?
Well, I have a question sitting about here where we've been subdividing some of the properties and we did it for family. Hypothetically, what would happen if a developer would come in and want to develop a piece of property that's prime land where we've did these other little subdivisions because of family? If he would happen, this would be a question for legal. If they came in and would ask to develop a piece of property in a housing development,
I can answer that.
with their chances, I mean, we would say it down. But if they decide to go to court and get it, but using these other examples, would they overrule this committee and the commissioners? There's a legal precedent to do that where there are other cases subdividing properties being done that way?
There's subdivision regulations. Everything we do works outside of subdivision regulations. Once you split the property for the third time, the first two times it can be split, the third time you enter subdivision regulations. It requires platting. It requires a whole legal process. And this is what got me into politics was I did 4 properties, each on their own 40 quarter section. There was discussions. Planning didn't want me to do it. And because the judge said it fell outside of subdivision regulations, I was able to do it. But yeah, you couldn't come in and just decide you're gonna bring a subdivision in an area. If you purchased, 100 acres here, 100 acres there, and you want to put one house on it, and you go through all this criteria, I'm sure, yeah. But that would be, I could hardly imagine a company doing that.
Well, we live in crazy times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying, is there the possibility of sitting there when you go to court, would the court overrule it with the other examples going on with other subdivisions like it? Because the situation is similar to subdividing. Think about it.
We can certainly look into that. I don't know that I would have the answer to that hypothetical.
But I mean, I know that I understand it, but I'm just putting it out in front of the board.
So
If
you-
that question, if somebody would turn around and would really want to cause a stink,
So you're saying if they would challenge the denial of the subdivision?
yes. If they try, and using as example that they've already been done in this case, that case, in this case, that they could turn around and would go to court and you would have no leg to stand down. The county would, because they did it in other situations for other reasons, other than the fact that they didn't want a subdivision.
I think people
I know I might be blowing things up a little bit, but we're living in a higher population densities in places where people want to build.
People would be doing it if they could. I probably would be one of them. I've read the ordinances very closely and tried to develop property. So
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of roll with that. In order to build like a subdivision, if you're going over that two splits that you're allowed per parcel. So if you're doing 3 splits or more, and they were less than 5 acres, less than 300 feet of road frontage, you trigger the subdivision regulations. And subdivisions wouldn't be allowed in the ag district. You'd have to rezone that. You have to change the comp plan first to create a residential area within the comp plan. And then you could, once you change the comp plan, then you could change the zoning. The zoning could follow to a residential district. And then you could go through the planning process for a residential plat or subdivision.
The reason we see these at the rate we see them is because it complies and
Well, I understand what you're saying, that I'm just saying if you get some energetic person someplace,
they'd have a,
they could push it.
they'd have a mountain to climb. They'd have to change.
You'd have to have a majority on the planning commission and the county board that was not interested in preserving agricultural land. And I think, you know,
I think it really depends on where that would be proposed as well. You know, if you look at our residential districts now, a lot of them are historic areas that were developed before the ordinance was in place. But the ones that came afterwards, they're generally like the subdivision in Pickwick. So it's right next to that old unincorporated community. And the way on the edge of that town, they built a subdivision.
Pickwick has been plotted out, if I'm not.
It was, but there was a subdivision in like the 80s, 90s, that went in Pickwick. And it was, so it's a good thing CD district, and then they added like a UR district like, connected to that. So it wasn't like a spot zone in the middle of an ag field somewhere with a subdivision. It was in a location that made sense for the zoning, and so they went through and did that. I don't think, I mean, I've been here 16 years now. Believe it or not, but we've never had a subdivision plat since I think we did have some in the 90s.
So what they did in Valley Oaks was an extension of an existing too.
That's right, that was in the city. So
Okay.
that's city services and all that, so that's a different, it's, similar, but within a municipality, and they're running, sewer and water to it, instead of, if it was a rural subdivision, you're looking at wells and septics, which makes it actually a bit more difficult to plan that all out and fit it onto parcels within subdivisions. So
It now feels like really a pretty good balance. We do want to protect agriculture, but perfect example was this second application tonight. It's in an area where there's already some houses. There's just a chip off of a small 4-acre field. They're not going into a 1,000-acre center of a ag area. That's a pretty nice balance to have people come to Winona County, from Crescent and feel like they can find a dream here.
Well, I'm
but
not saying
have-
anything
but-
against about, I voted for it or I was on with it.
But not have it completely, out of control with developments or chewing up all the.
Some of that land.
I like the
looking on
first one.
scrub land and
How
stuff
many
like that.
people take an old abandoned mine and want to build a house on it? I mean, to me, that's like,
That's like fringe habitat. College Natural Resources talks a lot about the fringe.
but I mean, that's just like the ultimate, like I said, a park would have been a good use for it as well. And I don't understand why Minnesota City didn't buy it and turn it into a park, but they didn't. So
All the people who signed this pre-written letter could have got together and purchased it if they wanted to keep
absolutely,
it
any one of them
the
could have.
same way.
That's my first thought, yeah.
okay, move to adjourn.
Second.
And Patrick seconded.
I see your concern.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.